Good afternoon, depending on where you are, and welcome to our fantastic webinar today. Today we're going to go over charting on the Nadex platform. I know we are, we're right on time, maybe a minute late here today, so we'll jump right into it. Go on this next page here. Hope everyone's doing well. We always have to go over this disclaimer at the beginning of each and every webinar here at Nadex. I'll leave it up on the screen for everyone to read just for a second. Very, very basically what it says though, trading on Nadex is gonna involve risk. Trading anywhere is gonna involve risk. And any money that you put up in a trade, you need to be aware that you can potentially lose that money. So don't trade with anything that you absolutely need. Save that rent money for paying rent. You only want to be trading with discretionary income. Also, I will be placing trades on the platform today. All of those trades are just going to be to show all of you the functionality of the charting package and go over some of the technical indicators, do some technical analysis. None of these trades that I'm going to be placing are any sort of recommendation to go ahead and make those trades yourself on your own Nadex account. So yeah, always good to remember those two things. We always have to go over them at the beginning of every webinar, but I think if you've been on any of them previously, this should be old news by this point. All right, we'll jump right in now that we've done some of the housekeeping stuff here. I guess this is still a little bit more housekeeping, a little bit about me. I've been working at Nadex for the last 5 years, and I've been focusing on our products and our platforms for the last 4, so I always love doing these webinars. I was around when we were setting up all of the platform. I've worked heavily with our platform team and with our charts, so I like going into them and showing off some of the functionality that maybe is not as apparent when you first get in. And in my own life, I've been trading for actually probably about 13 years now, mostly in equity options, some futures, some crypto, but primarily it's been the equity and equity options for most of my trading career. If you do have any questions, by the way, throw them in chat. I have them up over on my second screen. I'll get to them as we go through the webinar, or if you want to wait till the end, we can always go over them at the end. So we will be focusing just very heavily on the charts here today, all the features of the charts. That is going to take up the majority of the webinar. At the end, though, if we do have some time left, or I'll make sure that we at least very quickly get a very, very basic explanation or very basic understanding of 2 indicators that I like to use in trading. And I think so there's some of the, they're good if you're a little bit newer, maybe a little bit easier to understand. And that's going to be the exponential moving average and the relative strength index, the EMA and the RSI indicators. But primarily, we're going to be going over all the functionality that you can find on the Nadex charts. So I think that's enough housekeeping and everything here. Let's actually jump into the platform itself. I do have a question coming up, so I will answer that as I log into my account here. If you do have a Nadex account, you should know this login screen. If you aren't sure how to get here, you just want to go to nadex.com, and top right corner of your screen, there will be a login button. So the question that just came in here, would like to get some information on equities and equity options. Where can I find this? So you can, Nadex does have some derivative contracts that are based on the underlying equity markets. Those are going to be our indices markets, right? So we have a number of, broad on the entire indices of those equities. So we do have a lot of learning material on these particular, some of the US 500, the US Tech 100 for individual equity and equity options. That is not something that we offer at this time. So if your question is where can you find information on those sort of things, as an Nadex employee, I can't give you a specific area to go look for those. I would say if you Google, there's a lot of good learning. There's a lot of good places to learn that sort of thing online. Investopedia is always a great place to go ahead and start when you're newer to learning anything. So that would be my answer for that one. Sorry, I can't give you a more exact answer on that. So we do have our platform set up here. This is my demo account that I just logged in on. And we see right here in this, nice big middle area of the screen, this is where our charts are going to go. And this is where we're going to look at the chart for we're going to focus on for the majority of the webinar here. Let's go pick a market to look at. to do US 500, and this one just opened. We got a 2-hour contract here. So I'm going to go in, I can select my overall market, and then I can select my strike price. And clicking on any strike price or the buy or the sell price on from this sort of price ladder that we have here is going to bring up the chart, and it's going to bring up the deal ticket on the right hand side. This chart is a little bit messy, so let me very quickly try to get make it a little bit cleaner for everyone here. So we do have our chart here. Now you can see all of the strikes overlaid on the charts right in the middle. What I'm going to do for a lot of this webinar is actually drop away the both the deal ticket, all the kind of the panels, so we can see the entirety of the chart here. So if you do ever want to just look at the chart itself, you can go these little arrows, so you can hide up here on the deal ticket. You can press these little double arrows to hide down here, and you have these little double arrows, and now we have the chart up on the entire screen, so we have a lot more area to kind of work with here. So this is our chart, our US 500 chart that we're looking at right now. We have all of our strikes on the right-hand side of the screen, and we have all of these lines going across here. Very quickly, I'm actually going to take off a lot of these strikes. There we go. So now we have just our chart here itself. I will show you how to do that a little bit later in the webinar, but just so we have a little bit more clear look at our charts, we can look into it now. Yeah, the preview is if you hit the S button, you can toggle the strikes on and off. And again, I will go into a lot of the hotkeys a little bit later in the webinar. So we have a chart up on the screen. We want to start doing things. How do we start doing things? Well, there's a couple places that you're going to be able to actually access all the chart functionality, either from the top left of the chart. So this bar up here that I'm very, very quickly running my cursor over, or alternatively, you can right click on the chart itself, and you can also access most of the chart functionality from that right click. There are a couple things that you can only access from the top left panel here, one of which is the actual selector for how much time you are seeing on your candlesticks, right? So sort of the interval selector is going to be the very first thing that we look at, and the very leftmost functionality piece on this top bar here. So if we click this, we see all of our intervals. You probably saw me doing this right when we jumped in here to try to bring all the strikes into the screen. But here's just where you're going to select the interval for your candlestick, right? You can go down to 2 minutes, and now all of these charts are, all of these candlesticks are representing 2 minutes worth of charting data for that underlying market. That is another thing to make sure you remember before we go any further, is that for what you're seeing on these charts is always going to be the underlying market, unless you do switch over to quick charts, which again, we will show in just a little bit. So you can select all of your nice, chart, and we can go 1 minute, 2 minute. Now we have our 1 minute candles. And if we bring our strikes back up, yeah, now it looks a lot nicer here. On our strikes, they're a little bit further apart because we are looking at sort of 1 minute candlestick data here for the US 500. That's going to be how you select your indicators. There is one other thing that I do want to show here, and that's going to be the hotkey selectors for this. So we have all of our selectors. You can go from tick to daily, but you'll also see to the right-hand side of these, it says 15 minutes, and then a very light gray, it says 15 here. What these little light gray numbers and letters are, those are going to be your hotkeys. So if I actually just go back and I've selected on the chart, if I start typing in, so it said 15 for the 15 minutes, I'm going to type 1.5. It's going to bring up this panel right here, and because I'm in dark mode, it's a little bit hard to see, but you can see here it says 15 and then 15 minutes. If I hit enter, it has just changed my intervals. You can see up here at the top left to a 15-minute candlestick interval. So first little kind of hidden functionality that makes it a little bit easier is going to be these hotkeys. You don't have to go up to the top left every time and select your different intervals. You can just go start typing in, and if I want, let's say I want 1 hour, you can type in 1H, enter, and now I have 1 hour candlestick. So you can do this for all of the intervals, and if you ever are not sure what these hotkeys are, you can always look here, and they are these little grayed out panels. So any of these little grayed out numbers or letters that you're going to see to the right-hand side of any menu options, those are going to be sort of reminders for your hotkeys. And I think this is a little bit hidden functionality, but I think it's extremely useful. Just if you are changing this a lot, you don't have to, move your cursor back and forth all the time. You can just go and say, okay, no, I want my 1 minute candlestick back, enter. Now you have your 1 minute candles there again. So that's going to be that. That's just that first little bit of functionality that you are able to access there at the top left corner. Moving on from the just candlestick interval, because I think we've spent enough time on that, we have this selector here. This selector is going to allow you to select, basically say, okay, if I just want to see 1 day's worth of data, I want my screen, my chart to have 1 day worth of data, I can go select 1 day. And now if we go back to this very first candlestick, we can see that this first candlestick is Wednesday, April 27th at 12:15, and it is currently Thursday, April 28th at 12:15. So we can see we have exactly 1 day's worth of data on this chart right now. You will notice it did change my interval, so just be aware of that. But you can choose 1 day, 1 week, 1 month, or you can just go to a specific time. Like if I want to see the 26th, now if I go back here, we're seeing sort of the data on the actual 26th, all of this. So different ways you can go ahead and just find that data. We are going to just change this back though to the 1 minute candlestick so that it looks a lot nicer with all of our pretty strikes on the screen here. For the rest of the functionality, you can, for those first two things, you're only going to be able to access them from the top left of the screen. For everything else, I like to use sort of the right click. So if I right click anywhere on the chart, I have this nice little menu, and it's going to be the same thing. So you have your indicators here, you also have them here. So really just personal preference. I like the right click because you don't have to move your mouse as far. You can very easily get in and select what you want on the charts. So here are our indicators. We do have quite a few indicators. It's going to be the first thing in this right click menu here. One thing I do like about the indicators and the way we have them set up is that we do have quite a lot. If you aren't sure what any of these do, let's say I don't know what Bollinger Bands are, I can go and hover over this little information panel on the right hand side. And it's going to tell me a little bit of a blurb that Bollinger Bands are envelopes based on moving averages and a standard deviation. So it gives you a little bit of blurb. It's not going to give you the end all be all of all of these indicators. You can go on our site to learn a little bit more about each of them, but it will give you a very basic understanding of what these are and why you might want to use them. So if I say, okay, I do want my Bollinger Bands, then I can select them, and there we go. I think actually my my bands are still, these aren't the normal colors of the Bollinger Bands. Let me actually reset these to the defaults. Okay, there we go. I think I changed these on the last webinar as well, and I will show you how to change all those colors there. So that's going to be how you actually put your indicators on. You can put your Bollinger Bands. You can also put something like MACD. That's going to be one that is actually overlaid, underlaid. It's going to be across the bottom of the screen, not on top of the actual underlying market itself. So we selected 2 indicators here. And you may have seen when I just wanted to actually go and change, if I actually want to go and change any of the settings in the indicators, if I want to change, how far the periods are or the colors that the indicators are overlaid, you can go ahead and customize all of them. So the way you're going to do that is, the way you're going to do that is on the bottom left corner of the screen, you see this little thing. It says BOLL 20 and 2. So anything that's overlaid on the chart itself, you're going to find on the bottom left of the chart. If you click on that, you're going to have this box that pops open on top of your chart, and now you can go ahead and actually get in and choose the different customizable sections of the Bollinger Band, or any indicator that you want to use. So let's say instead of 20 period standard deviation looking at, I want to do 26, and I want to do 4 standard deviations, right? So basically what I'm saying here is give me a 26 period moving average with a 4 standard deviation, sort of bands on the side, right? This is just a little bit about Bollinger Bands. This middle line is going to be your moving average. These bands coming out are going to be the standard deviation from the moving average. Very basically is what you're getting with the Bollinger Bands. So you could change all of that here, and then you can also change, if I want the top and bottom to be, let's say I want the top and bottom to be red, and I want the middle to be, the moving average to be blue, and the fill to be purple. You can hardly see it. Let's say green. Now I have this nice kind of Christmassy Bollinger Bands going on here. You can also select, you can make the lines dotted, you can make them thicker. So you have a lot of different options here for how to move around. I'm going to reset this to the defaults right now because it's hurting my eyes just a little bit. So now we are back to our default of our Bollinger Band. So if you're ever, go real wide with any of your customizing, you can always reset it to the default there. And just one other thing on customizing your different indicators. If it is an indicator that's overlaid below the chart, it's going to be sort of on the top left here. So for something like MACD or moving average convergence divergence, if I click right there, I'm going to get my different options here. So I can select, instead of 1226, I can maybe go 2652, right? For my fast and slow moving average periods. And now I have a different selector there. So I am going to take off the MACD just so we have a little bit more area to work with here. That's really going to be most of everything that you can do with your indicators. As we move on, the next thing down on our menu here is our drawings. The drawings are fairly self-explanatory, but if you aren't sure what some of these things are, like for example, Elliott waves, you can go again, hover over the information bubble and it'll tell you Elliott wave theory uses 5 3-wave patterns that can be recognized within financial markets. So again, it'll give you a little bit of blurb, and I can say, okay, I really want my Elliott waves here, and I can click all over my chart. That's not how you would actually put up an Elliott wave, but there we go. We now have that overlaid on our chart itself. If you do want to delete this, because you say, well, first of all, you can move these around. You can actually grab your drawings, move them all around. And if you really want to delete it, you can actually right click and you can edit or delete or duplicate any of these different drawings. So I can edit it. I can put the different styles on here. So there's a lot of kind of hidden functionality. And again, the way that I'm doing this is I'm right clicking on the indicator itself. And again, I can kind of move it, edit it, or I can go ahead, duplicate it or just delete both of them. Let's go ahead. Oh, I'm missing it. There we go. I'm going to delete these because those are kind of nonsense that I just drew on the chart itself. So we have a lot of different drawings, obviously, that you have here. The very top bit of functionality is going to be your drawing toolbar. So if you're someone that draws all the time on their charts, that really likes drawing on them, this is probably going to be very useful for you. If I click on the show drawing toolbar, you will see on the bottom left now, I have this toolbar down here, and it's going to allow me to choose any of my drawings. So this is an arrow, right? If I click on the arrow, now I can point to my different different areas that I want to look at on the chart. Or I can select, my channel, and I can say, okay, we see a channel from here to, oh, is that a channel? There we go. We can see a channel from here to here to here. There we go. We have our little channel. So you have a lot of different options for actually drawing on the chart itself. And again, you can always move these around, and etc. The one other thing that I do want to go over really quickly is this little bit of functionality here. It's probably not something that you'll toggle very often, but I do want to mention it just because it is there. It is something that you can toggle. It's called Snap to HLOC prices. And what it is, so right now you'll see that it's toggled on. So if I zoom in and I selected the arrow, right? If I actually kind of go over my chart here, you'll see it's sort of snapping to these top points. So it's snapping to my open price here, or sorry, my close price, it's snapping to the high price, right? So you can kind of see, and when I actually click on it, it's right on that close price of the chart here. If I turn that off, you'll see that it actually won't snap anymore. It kind of won't drag on, and I can get, I can just sort of just get close, but I'm not exactly snapping the high, the low, the open, or the close. So that's what that does. I usually just leave it on. It helps, honestly, generally draw on the charts because it actually snaps to part of the chart that you probably want to be drawing on. But if you don't want that to happen, just turn that off. It's called, again, it's the snap to HLOC prices, the HLOC obviously standing for high, low, open, close prices. And then at the bottom here, if you don't like your drawings, you want to delete them all, you can say delete all drawings, and they have all disappeared. So that is really the drawings. We can go over those fairly quickly because I think a lot of the drawing is pretty self-explanatory. So as we move on down through our different charting functionality here, we have our different types. So these are just going to be the different types of charts that you can actually see on the chart itself. It's going to default to your candlestick chart. That's going to be the one that is going to be the default for pretty much any charting package. The only other charting package that it might default to on in other places is going to be your line chart, but we'll go through the different options now. So we have our candlestick. Moving on down, we have our Heikin-Ashi charts. Very, very briefly, basically what a Heikin-Ashi chart does is it takes an average rather than the absolute high, low, open, close values. It takes an average value for the high, low, open, close, and it sort of smooths out the charts. It gives it this a lot smoother appearance where you have these longer strings of red candles followed by longer strings of green candles, rather than if we go back to our regular candlestick, you'll see it's a little more choppy. You'll have red, 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 green, red, 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 right, green, green, red. Again, if I go back to my my Heikin you'll see it's very much more, periods of long green candles and then periods of long red candles. If you do want to learn more about Heikin I recommend going on our site. We do have a little bit more on exactly what it is, why you would use it. But that's kind of the short and sweet explanation that I have the time to give you all on this webinar here today. Moving on now, we have our line chart. Line is pretty self-explanatory. It's just the line for the actual chart. Moving down below that, we have HLOC. So these are just going to be the HLOC chart. It just is a better, some people think it's the easier way to look at the high, the low, the open, the close of each candlestick. And I don't know, I don't use it too much, but it is kind of nice where you can see the open sort of facing that way, the close facing to the right, and get a bit clearer picture of what's going on if you do want that. And then we have the mountain, which is basically just our line chart, and it's shaded underneath. I am going to move back to our candlestick chart here. And there we go, there's our nice chart. So that's going to be all of the types. We can move through that pretty quickly here. Next, we have the price. So this is one that, unless you know why you'd be changing it, generally last traded is going to be your best bet. Last traded is going to be the default of when you actually just open up the chart, when you open up the platform. It's also the reason why I say don't change it. So what this actually is showing you either the ask, the mid, or the last traded price of the underlying market. So if I change it to ask, you'll see if you look at actually the chart, like if you stare over here at the chart and I change to ask, you'll see all of these move up slightly, or generally you see them move up slightly. If I go to bid, you'll see the entire chart move down slightly, and that's because you're getting the ask and the bid price. And I'll show you something here very quickly. Let's take these strikes off for a second. So this is the strike we're on. Now, if you look at this is the indicative price of the underlying market, right? So the price that you really want to be looking at when you're trading. If I now compare this to the price that I'm seeing here, you'll notice these two prices aren't matching up right now. Why? What's happening here? Well, it's because I've just selected bid instead of last traded, right? So if I select the bid, if I select the ask, what's happening is you're seeing the bid prices or the ask prices, right? The buy prices or the sell prices, if we want to use the same terminology Nadex uses, of that underlying market. And what happens a lot is people can call in and say, look, your chart isn't showing the same thing as the actual deal ticket showing. What gives, what's happening? Generally, 9 times out of 10, it's because this has been selected something other than last traded. Notice if I go back to last traded, now these two prices really should be moving in tandem with each other, right? 260, they're obviously going to be kind of moving one after another, but really we're showing the same thing both on the chart and on the indicative price. And this is why I say generally just leave this function to last traded, unless you really want to see what the ask and bid of the underlying market is, then maybe choose it. But just remember, you do need to change it back to last traded if you want the chart to reflect the same thing you're seeing as the indicative price anywhere else on the platform, whether it be here or whether it be on the actual market selector itself. Now, I know I just spent a lot of time saying why you shouldn't change that, but one reason why you might want to is if you're using quick charts. So let's take a detour from the functionality on this right click area, and we'll go up to this right hand corner section of the chart. So this is this little hamburger selector. It does a couple of things. It's going to allow you to tear off the chart, which we will go over in just a little bit. But the top option here is switching to quick chart. So very basically, I'll click this really quickly. And so now we have a much different chart. And I can only go back, I can't go back very far on this chart, right? I'm only showing about, a handful of candlesticks. So what are we seeing here? Why is this? You'll see we're pricing at about $91. What's going on? Well, if you select the quick chart, you're actually no longer looking at the charting of the underlying market, right? So what we were looking at before was the chart of the US 500 contract on which the Nadex derivative is based. Now we are looking at the charting of the pricing of the actual Nadex derivative contract. So in this case, the binary option contract, US 500 greater than 4209.6 at 2 p.m. And so if we actually go here and we go to price, we can hit ask, and you'll see this price that it's showing right here, this 93.75. It's lining up with what we're seeing here. So basically what the quick chart is allowing you to do is see the history of not what the underlying market's been pricing at, but what the history of what the actual option itself has been pricing at. It's super useful functionality, and you might want to say, okay, well, what was the buy side of this contract pricing out? Right now we see it's pricing at 95.50. We can check here, 95.50, 95.50, but we can say, okay, well, 10 minutes ago or however long ago this was, it was pricing at a price of about $64, right? At the highest here. So we can see the history of the actual option itself. And again, if we go over to our bid price, it moves on down and we see, okay, now this is actually lining up with our sell price here, right? 90.75, 90.75. So this is where I mostly change over to actually looking at the ask price and the bid price. If I want to see the history of the bid price or the sell price or the buy price of the actual option I'm trading, right? You can also go to the midpoint price, and again, we'll see the mid price. It'll just be right in between here. The mid price is fairly useful as well, generally because the midpoint pricing of any binary option contract can be construed as the probability the market is pricing of that option to be true or false. If that doesn't make much sense to you, I definitely encourage to check out the binary option webinar I did last week or a couple weeks ago. I do it, sort of rotating webinar every Thursday, and I'll plug that very quickly there. So this is going to be basically where you actually go. It's going to be the quick chart up here, and it'll just show you the actual chart of the option that you're trading on rather than the underlying market. And move back over, we go back to switch to default chart, and now we have our US 500 chart here again. So now we're looking at the underlying market again rather than the actual option itself. So that's a quick chart, and that's why you might want to change this price sector from ask, bid, mid, last traded. If you aren't using the quick chart, the default of last traded is generally what you should be putting on there, just because if it's set to last traded, the chart should be showing the same price as the indicative market, and it's the most it's the best price to be looking at because it's the underlying market that's being fed through our settlement calculation. So very basically, it's the price on which the settlement at the end of the contract is going to be taken. So that is the price area, the ask, bid, mid, and last traded. I think we can move on from there just a little bit, and we'll go look at our nice chart here again. We've really, while I've been talking here, the US 500 has been spiking in a large upward direction. The markets are looking fairly green, at least the last 10, 20 minutes here. So moving on, we have our scale. So this little scale section, it actually is going to default to linear. Linear is going to be the default when you get into the platform. What this is referencing is this right-hand part. Let me drop this down. This right-hand section of the platform right here. So when it is selected to linear, basically what you're going to see is the absolute price, the numerical price of the underlying market. So we have, 42.20, 42.15, 42.10, right? So those are the numerical prices of that US 500 futures contract. So that underlying market there. That's going to be the default when you actually first open up your platform. If I go over to percentage, you'll notice that changed from absolute numbers to percentage numbers on the right-hand side. And if we go, so we can look, we have 0% here, and we have negative percentages, positive percentages. What are these percentages saying? Well, if we go all the way back to the right-hand side, we sort of track over, you'll notice that the 0% here lines up perfectly with the very first candle that is on the very left-hand side of the screen. And even if I start zooming out, you'll see this is going to change. And again, if I go find 0, go all the way over to the side, left-hand side, it matches up perfectly with this 0%. So basically what it's showing you is On the left-hand side, you're always going to have 0%. And so you can very easily see, okay, how much, since the very first candle that I've shown here, how much has the market moved in a percentage basis up or down? So I like using the percentage a lot more just because I can very quickly say, okay, well, I have this candle here. This candle was at 10:29 Eastern, so about an hour ago. And right now the market's trading around here. So I can say, okay, very quickly, the market's moved up about 1% in the last hour. So it's a very quick way to get sort of a reference point for the percentage movements that you're seeing on your chart and sort of the time that that percentage movement's been happening. Again, more of a personal preference thing. If you like the linear one, feel free to use that. I just prefer using the percentage because I think it provides a little bit more information while you're actually trading on the charts. So that's going to be the scale here, linear percentage. Next, we go down to show, and this is where we're going to, I'm going to show you in this show section, I'm going to show you some more of these hotkeys. So we'll go down through this, but first of all, this strikes one that's deselected. That's the strike thing I've been toggling on and off. It's my favorite hotkey to use. I use it all the time. And it's probably maybe the most useful thing you'll see on this webinar is this S key. So if you toggle this S key on and off, it's going to toggle your strikes. I use this all the time because I'll be trading. I want to just look at my strike, right? So I'll be saying, okay, I'm just trading this strike. And then I'll say, okay, well, actually, let me see all the strikes. Maybe I want to trade this one. So I'll select this and then turn the rest off. So I use this one all the time. If you hit the S key on your keyboard, you can toggle it on and off. Just make sure you're actually selected. You have to be kind of clicked into the chart, and then you can toggle those. And that's going to be, if you just want to not use the hotkeys, you can toggle them here in the strikes area, but I think the hotkey is a lot more useful here. But we've gotten a little bit ahead of ourselves. So I'll go down sort of top to bottom here, show you all the functionality in the show section of the platform. So first we have our HLOC data. So if I turn it off, you'll be able to see it, but see this box that's been following my cursor the whole time, the one that says last traded, highest, lowest, open, close, change, basically HLOC and on the change. That is going to be the box that's called HLOC data under show. So if I go to show and I turn that off, you'll see that box is no longer there, right? There's no longer a box following my cursor around. If I go turn it back on, that box comes back, and I can see basically this box that whenever I hover over a different candlestick, it'll tell me the information for that candlestick, right? So if I'm hovering over this very red candlestick right here, it's going to tell me the last traded, highest, lowest, open, close for that candlestick, how much change in the percentage basis and absolute basis happened in the candlestick, and it'll also tell me what's going on the Bollinger Bands because I have those overlaid on the chart itself. So I like to keep that on because I like the most information possible, but if you like your charts to be super clean, maybe you want to turn that off. And if you don't really need that information, you just like a clean looking chart. And that's really what's more important to you. Moving on down, we have our drawings. So again, if I have my drawings here and I have my arrows here, I can actually toggle those off and just sort of hide my drawings. And I can toggle them back on to show my drawings. Same thing with indicators, toggle my indicators on and off. Pretty self-explanatory. So then we have our open positions, working orders, and strikes. So let me very quickly put a trade on here. Wow, we have some very the underlying market's really moving upwards. So we don't have a lot of very good buy side contracts here. So let me just jump into one real quick. So I'm just going to place an order. So we have our market order here. We just got into, and I'm also going to place a working order on this contract really quickly. So I know I'm moving fast here. I just want to show you how this is overlaid on the charts though. So you'll see I just placed one working order. So I'm saying get me into this contract if it ever moves down to a price of $25. I also just entered into one position, right? So I have one contract and I have one order on the exchange saying get me in, right? You'll notice when I actually place these, I have these come up on the chart itself. So I have my order here, this red box. That's going to be my actual position. I'm sorry, that's not the order. That's the open position that I have. You'll see that it has my profit and loss first. So I'm currently losing about $6 on this trade. So I'll see my loss there, minus 525. And then I have to see the other information about this contract. So +1, that means I'm on the buy side. That +1 means I have one contract. Above 4237.6, that's going to be the strike price, right? So this red box here, that is showing me my open position that I have. And then the gray box is showing me my working order. So +1 above 42376, that's going to be this working order here. And I can show you, if we go again and place a different working order, you can see your other working orders on the other, let's get this out of here. You can see the other working orders on any other strikes that you do have, right? So these are going to be where you see your working orders, where you see your open positions. And this open position, it will turn green if I'm in a profit. Now you can actually toggle these on and off. So if I go down to the show section, if I don't want to see my open positions, I can click on it, it disappears, and I can bring it back, right? So I can toggle my open positions here. Same thing with working orders. I can toggle them on and off. And so it's really just showing you any positions and any orders you have overlaid on the chart itself. So I think it's fairly helpful to be able to see that. These are another thing that you can actually use with hotkeys. So let me drop these away. And if I press W, that's going to, oops, I accidentally pressed S at the same time. If I press W, that's going to, should toggle unless I'm, oh, no, it's O. See, even I forget the hotkeys sometimes. If you want to, if you are forgetting what the hotkeys are, like I just did, if you see working orders here, you see this little grayed out box. It says O. So let me press the O button, not the W. And there we go. Working orders is toggled off. And you can see when you actually press it, it'll tell you press O to show hide. So I can toggle my working orders. If I do P, I can toggle my open position on and off, right? So I can do this. Kind of probably giving a lot of you a seizure by doing that. Sorry about that. And then I can toggle my, press S to toggle my strikes. And the last thing that you will be able to toggle on and off in this area with your hotkeys is going to be the T button. And that's going to toggle that timeline on the bottom of the screen. Probably the least useful of all of these, but it is there if you do want to use it. So those are all going to be all your hotkeys: P for your positions, O for your working orders, S for your strikes, and T for your timeline on the bottom there. And again, if you do forget what those are, you see POST on the right-hand side. And just to show you, if you're in a profit, it will show you the green on the chart as well. So that's going to be most of the show section. The other two things on this, you have your price changes. So before I toggle this, I'll explain the price changes are going to be this box on the bottom. So all of this information that you're seeing here, it says 35.97, 0.85%. Really what those are showing is the same thing as this linear sort of scale here. So we see it's moved 35 points from this first candle, right? That's what this first number down here on the bottom left is showing. That's moved upwards 35 points in the green, and that's an upward movement of 0.82% from this first candlestick to where we are now. And it also is showing us both the high and the low of this underlying market for today, and the high and the low of the actual period we're looking at. So this Thursday, 28th, 12:03 to 12:42. That's what we're looking at here, and it's showing us the high and the low of all of that. If you don't want those on your chart, you can go to show, click price changes, and you'll see those numbers on the bottom left have now disappeared. You can toggle them back on, and now they're back. There we go. We have our price changes. So again, that's where you toggle it. I like having them on because I like a messy chart that shows a lot of information. If you like a cleaner chart that shows less information, but it looks a lot cleaner, feel free to toggle all of this stuff on and off. And the very last thing we have in our show section here is going to be this price line. So the price line, if you see this line running across where, I'll toggle this off, you see this very faint blue line that's running across your entire chart. If you actually toggle the price line, that price line goes away, right? So the line where the price of the market actually is, you can toggle that line on and off as well. There we go. That's where the price line is. I think we did have a question coming in here. Okay, so yeah, you are making sense. So we have a question coming in here. I'll read it really quickly. Can you go over what you were making when you enter a trade? I see that there was a negative $2.50 and then going to green. If you lost the trade, would the amount be, what would the amount of money that you, okay, if you lost the trade, would that be the amount of money that you lose? Am I making sense? Yes, you're making sense. So when I enter a trade, we'll get into a trade super quickly here. I do want to keep this primarily to just charting functionality, but it is a good question, so we'll go over this fairly quickly. So let's say we wanted to get into this binary option trade, right? Right now the market's pricing it at about 98.25. And I can, let's say I want to enter into this trade. I can just, let's do a market order, get in real quick. I'll place the order, and we'll see, gets in right here. And we'll see right now it's at -$6, right? Why is it at -$6? What's going on here? What's happening? And also we'll see here that -$6, that's my profit and loss. So this is the contract. This top one is the one we just got into, and I'm losing $6 right off the bat. Why is that going on? Why am I losing money when I first get in? It's because what's that showing you right there is the profit and loss of the contract if you were to exit the contract right now. So you can see here I paid $98.25 to get into the contract. If I exit the contract right now, I bought to enter the contract, so I have to sell to get out. If I exit the contract right now, I sell at $92.50. 98.25 minus 92.50 is -$5.75, right? Or it's actually 92.50 minus 98.25 to get that negative price. So why it goes negative as soon as you enter the contract is going to be something we call the bid offer spread. Basically, there's going to be a different price to buy a contract and a different price to sell a contract. And what this price is telling you is what you can exit it right now. So it will almost always be negative when you enter the contract, right? Because if I buy to get in, I have to sell to get out. And if I sell to get in, I have to buy to get out. So basically, to start making a profit, you have to overcome this gap, what we call the bid offer spread, of about $6 in this case. On the live account, I will say that's a lot tighter, that spread. So it'll only be maybe $2, $3 generally that you have to overcome. But that's why it's red when you first start out. One other thing to remember about this, though, is that this is just the profit and loss if you were to exit right now. It is not the profit and loss if this contract were to expire right now, right? So I can sell this contract right now, I would take a loss of $5.50. But if the contract were to expire right now, I would actually make money because it would expire in my favor because the market is above this strike price, right? The market's up here. I bought this contract, therefore I get a payout at the end of the contract. So I hope that answers your question here. We are going to jump back into the charting functionality, but I did just want to make sure that I answered that question because it is a good question. It is something that comes up from time to time. If you do want some more information on the binary options, I did a webinar either last week or 2 weeks ago. It will be on our YouTube channel. Go check that out, and I go really in depth into a lot of binary options and different questions like the one you just asked. No problem. Okay, so back onto the rest of the charting functionality here. We have our layout section here. So the layout section, basically, if you have a setup, so let's say that I always like using my Bollinger Bands, and I always like using, what's another indicator? Moving average. Or let's do one of the model. Let's do MACD again. So let's say I always like using my Bollinger Bands and moving average convergence divergence, and I always like that setup. Well, I can save that setup here under layouts. I can save it as Adam super sweet layout. Right, there we go. I just saved it, I hit enter. Now, if I go, let's exit both of these, and let's say I'm trading on, I don't know, let's say I'm trading on oil here, or oil call spread. I'll go over crude oil. Let's get one of these to pop up. Let's trade on Forex then. So let's say I'm trading on Forex now, and I really want my Bollinger Bands and MACD because that's always what I trade on. That's what I like to use all the time. I can go layouts, I can go apply, and then what did I call this? So Adam's super sweet layout is what I called it. I can apply that, and there we go. Our Bollinger Bands and our MACD are back. So again, this is super useful if you always have maybe like a suite of indicators that you want to use, that you want to overlay. You can save that indicator sort of suite, all of them together, save them as a different layout, overlay them whenever you get onto your platform and put them on very easily. And then if you want to go ahead and delete them, let's say I don't want Adam's super sweet layout anymore, I can select that and delete it. So and now it's not there anymore. So that's going to be how you actually get your layouts. Let's go back to our contract here. Okay, so this was our US 500 contract, and actually this market's still going up, and I'm making some money here. So that's fairly nice. So that's going to be the layouts. We have our customized appearance. This customized appearance section is just going to let you customize the actual appearance of your chart. So everything from the candlesticks, it's actually really just the candlesticks and the lines here. So let's say I like my middle line to be, my unchanged candlestick to be really thick and that to be red. I want my, rising body here to be blue and my falling body here to be yellow. So now we have a blue and yellow. Let's apply this. So now we have blue, we have yellow, and you can even change things like, how thick these lines are, right? So now they're very thick outside lines. That looks fairly terrible, but you feel free to do whatever you want to do on the chart. That's why we have this customized appearance section so that you can customize this however you see fit. You can also, one thing, you can toggle this grid. So that grid on the background, you can toggle that on and off. You can also change the color of that grid. And you can show the watermark. The watermark's just going to show you what underlying market you're trading on. And if you do want to reset it to the defaults like I do right now, because that's extremely ugly, that I just put up, you can reset it to the defaults. And there you go. You can change all of these as well individually for each area, right? So anyway. So that's super, I'm not going to go any further into that, but that's how you actually customize your appearance here. And then finally, the last sort of thing we have on this middle right click panel is going to be this export chart button. Export chart, pretty self-explanatory. You click it and it's going to put a little download thing at the bottom left. You click on that and it'll pop up a picture of your chart. So if you do ever have a chart set up that you really like looking at, or that you want to go back and look at, or that you want to send to a friend or a trading group, or you need to send to customer service, whatever, you can export the chart super easily. You can do this without actually screenshotting your screen. If you just want to export it, you can go ahead and do that, and you have this nice little picture. That is the export chart. We do have another question coming in here. I see that you have I see that you have an expiry time to be 1 hour 13 minutes. Does this mean that you will be in these trades for the next 1 hour and 13 minutes before it closes out then? So that means that this contract closes, it expires in 1 hour and 13 minutes. However, if I want to, right, so really quickly, and again, if you want more in-depth on all of this, check out the binary option webinar I did a couple weeks ago. But super quickly, if I want to exit these contracts at any time, be it binary, call spread, knockout contracts, you can exit them anytime you want, as long as there's someone still on the other side of the market willing to basically buy that contract back off you, right? So if you own a contract, you need someone on the other side to sell it to, but as long as there is, you can always get out of your contract, right? No matter what time, so I can go ahead and close this position. There we go. I'm out of that contract that I was losing money on, but the expiry, the time left, yes, that means in 1 hour and 10 minutes, this will expire. Then at that point, all that matters is this above or below the strike price, right? Up until that point, there's a lot more factors that go into your profit and loss. It's basically how much has the underlying market moved since you entered it. So that's what this expires in means, basically, right? This is a 2 hour contract. We have about 1 hour and 10 minutes left in it because this expires at 2 p.m. Eastern time. So that's what that expires in means. But it's always good to remember that just because it expires at that time doesn't mean that you can't get out early, right? So if you want to lock in your profits, you want to limit your losses, you can always do that. All right, so I do want to make sure, I think we have a couple more questions come in. Let me just get through these last couple of bits of functionality that I do want to show, and then I'll make sure I answer these questions. I just want to make sure we don't get pressed up to our time here. So we kind of went over everything in this this middle panel here. One or two other things that we can go over that are relevant to the charts. So one thing, so you may have noticed, I've been zooming in and zooming out, and I've been doing this quickly, so you may have actually missed it. But you'll see as I zoom in and zoom out right now, the chart is not zooming around where I'm zooming and zooming out. And I'll tell you what I mean by that when I actually show you how I'm doing it. So let's actually go back, and now if I zoom in and out, you'll see how it's kind of zooming my chart window in and out of, so I can actually see all of the chart, right? So right now it's kind of sizing, it's auto zooming my window so I can see the whole chart. So now I zoom out, and you'll see it's sort of zooming my window out so I can see the entire chart again. And then if I zoom back in, it's sort of zooming it back in. Now, if I actually just grab the chart and swing it around, right? Because you can just click anywhere on the chart, grab it, swing it around. Now, if I zoom in and out, it's not doing that. So how do I toggle that on and off? What's going on here? Well, the way you can easily toggle that on and off, as well as if you get like really far away from the chart and now you're saying, where the hell is my chart? How did I get all the way out here? This button here that looks sort of like a play button, right? The play to the right with that line. This button will not only take you to the latest candlestick. So if I click it, it'll take me to the latest candlestick. It also toggles on that auto zoom functionality, right? So if I zoom in, zoom out with my mouse, right? So this is what I'm doing with my mouse. Oops, now I'm not on the chart. But yeah, if I'm zooming in and out with my mouse, now if I grab this around, it's not doing this anymore. But if I click this, it will do it. So just another little bit of kind of hidden functionality, but I think it's a nice functionality to have. So just always remember, if you can't find the chart, if you kind of grab the chart gone really far away from it, or if you want that auto zoom to come back, you want to hit this latest price button and it will enable the auto zoom again. Also, another thing you might have seen me done at the beginning here, if you have a lot of strikes here and a lot of them are sort of jumbled up because if they're too compressed, it'll kind of hide the strikes. You can also drag on this left-hand corner of the screen and sort of widen the chart out. So if you go over to this side and you'll see a little symbol that has the up arrow, down arrow, you can drag this and resize your chart like that. And again, if you want to just get back to the normal thing, you can just go click this button on the top right that says latest price, and it will take you back in here. One other piece of functionality that I want to make sure I touch is the tear off charts. So if you go back up here to our little hamburger menu that you may have noticed we used earlier to get to our quick chart, you also have this option here that says tear off chart. If I click it, it's going to pop open a new window that has my chart in it. So you can tear off the charts this way. You can tear off the deal tickets this way. You can also just set your screen up to, if I want to go here and I want to have my deal ticket and my chart, or if I just want to have, you can drop your chart away and just sort of look at the price ladder here. You can do a lot of things with these, but basically what this is doing is it's tearing off the chart into another window. And what I like to do with this is I'll have like a second screen going. I have another one up here. Let me just pull these off here. So let's say I always want to look at, the Aussie dollar call spreads and the US 500 binaries, right? Let's just say that those are two markets that I like to trade. Well, I can actually set this up here. And I usually do this on my second screen, which is a little bit bigger. So this looks a little bit more convoluted here. But very basically, you can put like 2, 4, a lot of charts together. And now we can see I have my different charts on here. If I want to get into a contract, I can go click on the contract itself and actually get into, where's the call spread here? Okay. I can actually pull up the deal ticket, enter the contracts itself from this area as well. So the way you're going to do that again, I'm going to exit these out. You can actually, you just tear them off. It's going to be this hamburger menu, click tear off chart, and there you go. You have another window with the chart that you can move around, you can customize, you can resize, and kind of set your screens up how you want them to be, how you want to customize them. So that is really a lot of the functionality here. What I'm going to do real quick is answer another question that came in, and then I will go over fairly quickly. We're at 11:55 right now, or 12:55 if you're on the East Coast. So I do want to make sure that we get to the RSI and the EMA and going over those for the people that did come for that specifically. So real quick, let me answer this question here. Okay, this is a good question. So I will read this out and I will give a little bit of background. It says, and so this is the question. During the webinar, when the new platform was being set up, the main request was a stop loss for intraday trading. A stop loss was promised for intraday trading, but never happened. If a third party can offer a stop loss, why not Nadex? Also, I've tried third party stop losses in the past and it is not reliable. That is a good question. And it is something that is fairly close to me because I was one of our biggest proponents internally on putting a stop loss on the platform. Without going too much into the specifics and internals of how all of our projects here work at Nadex, it is something that we still do have on kind of our backlog. It is a much larger project than you may assume because it seems like, just put a stop loss on, right? It's a much more technical thing, and very basically, just to be very blunt, we just haven't been able to get around to it with our current sort of what we're able to actually do and build right now, and we had a lot of things that we had to prioritize in front of it. So it is a good question, and I do, when we were building this platform and in a lot of the early webinars, I was talking about the stop loss a lot because again, I'm a very big proponent of getting the stop loss on the platform. We still do want to do it at some point, and it is still something that is in sort of our roadmap to do. It's just something that, because of a lot of other functionality that people were requesting more, got pushed up to the front, and because it is actually a very technically intensive feature to go ahead and build, that's why we don't have it yet. And I do apologize, because I know we were talking a lot about it early on. It is something that I really want to do, and I'm actually kind of bummed as well that we don't have yet. The reason a third-party stop loss, because I do know what you're talking about. There are other people that have developed third-party stop losses on Nadex. I won't get into the technicals of why those aren't super reliable, but very basically what it's doing is it's kind of reading our data on the front end and then placing like a market order back in on your account, or at least from the third-party stop losses that I've seen. And that's why they're not super reliable, because what it has to do is sort of read your data and then set an order to what you're doing through it. I won't get into the super technicals of it. The end all be all is I do apologize that we don't have it up yet, because it is something that we do want to do, and it is something that we still do plan on doing. I can't give you a timeline, because we're building a lot right now, and there's a lot I can't talk about. There's a lot of really excited that we are building right now, but I'm not able to publicly talk about yet. But stick around. I think there's some very cool things coming, some new products, some new features that you'll quite like. But yeah, for right now, there are no stop losses of it, and I'm sorry for that. Okay, so that was, I think, the last question that we have on here. So really quickly, I will go over RSA and RSI and EMA, because I did promise that I would do that earlier. So we'll do a super crash course in what these two are. Let's take our Bollinger Bands off here. These are just one of many, obviously, indicators that we offer on the platform. But they're ones that I use sometimes. So let me remove all of our drawings. Let's delete the drawings. Let's take off our indicators. Oh, one other thing, if you want to remove your indicator, you can click this little X button down here, so ball 22X, and that will also remove the indicator. So a couple of indicators we have here. We have RSI, the first one. RSI is going to stand for Relative Strength Index. The relative strength index is a momentum indicator, and if we want to look at our little blurb here, we say, oh, it's a popular momentum indicator, found between the values of 0 and 100. So I could just read this to you right now. I'll let you read this on your own time if you want to actually read that yourself, but if we actually overlay it on the chart, we'll see our RSI period here. And wow, this is actually a kind of nice one to teach everyone. So let me drop this down so we can see everything here. Let me drop some of these strikes away so it looks a little cleaner. Okay, so we have our chart here. Wow, we really have some over 70. So basically what the RSI is doing is it's taking a certain period and it's looking at it, it's giving you a range of kind of overbought and oversold. So you'll see down here, oh, I need to change these. Are these set up to, yeah, they are set up to 70 and 30. Let me change these to linear. So we have 70 and 30. You'll see these 70 on the bottom and 30. Very basically what this is saying is you'll see this little chart overlay on the bottom, and what you want to be looking for with the relative strength indicator is if this line is going above 70, or if it's shaded red in this scenario, generally as a momentum indicator, it's giving you a sign that the underlying market is overbought, right? So generally if it's above 70, you can view that as a technical indicator that the market may be going in a downward direction. Now, obviously, we see this isn't always true, right? We see that the momentum's going up, and now we're getting overbought signals all the way up here and like a super overbought signal. However, the market's still moving up. However, sometimes if you go back, and this is kind of where indicators, it can very heavily depend on how much time you have on the chart, how are you using them, right? It can very heavily depend on a lot of different factors. For example, I just change this to 15-minute candlesticks, and now this indicator actually does line up a lot more. So we see sort of it's overbought here. We see an overbought indicator, and now if we put on the sell side and it went down, well, this is kind of telling us to sell and that the underlying market has an opportunity, might move in a downward direction after this. So as with all technical indicators, none of them are perfect. That's always one thing you need to remember. And none of them are going to be right 100% of the time, but they can give you sort of an idea for a trade and which, again, if it's over the 70 period on the RSI, it's going to be an overbought signal and is a signal that the market may be moving in a downward direction. And then you also see here, as we zoom in, we have this, if it's under 30, that's going to be an indicator that the underlying market is oversold, right? That there's sort of if you will, too much selling, right, from the momentum of the market. And an oversold indicator is generally an indicator that the market may be moving back up. And here we can actually see the market did move back up as after it did hit this oversold period here. So that's really how you want to use RSI. You want to be looking for periods where it's going over that 70 and giving you an overbought signal that is then telling you that the market may be moving in a downward direction, or you want to be looking at periods where it's under 30 and giving you an oversold signal and that the market may be moving in an upward direction after that point. You can also change these. So if you, for example, I know a lot of people, instead of using 70-30, they use 80-20. And just to give you like a really, really overbought or a really, really oversold signal, people will do that sometimes. And you can see now we don't really have any. We're kind of playing around with the overbought limit here, but there's not much. So you can change those as well. So that's going to be, again, I'm telling you, these are super crash course. If you want to learn a lot more, you can go on our site, or Google has a lot of videos on these, YouTube has a lot of videos on these. So that's really going to be RSI, and I will go over EMA as well. So EMA is the exponential moving average. Where is it? Okay, exponential moving average, and we can see the exponential moving average is a weighted moving average indicator. So the last RSI was kind of in the buckets of indicators. RSI is a momentum indicator. Exponential moving average is a weighted moving average indicator, right? Very basically, what exponential moving average does is it's giving you a moving average, right? So it's averaging all of the X number of periods and giving you the average value of that. That's what these lines are. What the exponential moving average, though, is it weights the more recent periods heavier, right? So it gives more kind of credence to what's happening more recently in the market as opposed to what's happening a long time ago in those in that moving average. And why this is helpful and how you might want to use this. So we see when I actually put my EMA on, the default EMA setting is going to be, which I think this is the default. Yeah. It's going to be 20, 50, 100, and it's going to default to 3 lines, right? So it's going to be 3 different exponential moving averages. It's going to be a 20 period, it's going to be a 50 period, and it's going to be a 100 period exponential moving average, right? And so we can see here that basically this purple line, it's looking back 20 periods or 20 kind of 15-minute candlestick periods. The 50 looking back 50, the 100 looking back 100 periods, right? Well, that's all fine and good, but how do I actually want to use these? How might this help me in my trading? Well, one way that people do use these is looking for where these moving averages cross, right? So, and we can actually see, we have an example, some of them here. So we have, this is actually a super nice one to look at. I'm very glad that the market's moving like this so we can look at this. So we can see here the general rule. If the lower period, right, the one looking at the least amount of time, so in this case the 20 EMA, the purple line on our chart, if that is crossing below the other 2 moving averages, generally that's going to be a sell signal, right? That's going to be a downward signal in the market. While if the lower period exponential moving averages starts crossing up above the longer period one, right? Again, we kind of see that here. That's going to be generally a signal of an upward movement in the underlying market, right? So we have a kind of a nice one here. So you can see these are all kind of diverging from each other. And as the market starts moving down, the 20 period at this point crosses this blue line, right? The purple 20 period crosses the blue 50 period, and then crosses the yellow 100 period. And you can see that the underlying market is moving down with that moving average, right? And again, a few minutes later, we can actually see it moving back up, and we can actually see some buy signals happening here with the 20 period crossing first over that 100 period moving average, crossing above, and then crossing again above the 50-period moving average, and now the 20 is above again. So these are the different ways that you might want to use the exponential moving averages. You can go in here and change these. I know 2050 is the default here. You can use 2652. A lot of people do like using those, especially if you're looking at longer term charts, because generally if you're looking at, let's say, a week candlestick, that's going to give you a half year and a year exponential moving average ranges. You can also put in, maybe I want us to look at 10 and, I don't know, 15 and 26, right? So you can look at a lot of different these, and if you really want to get super into this, you can have 100 of these, and you can always look wherever any of these are crossing, you then get in and look at the cross. There's a lot of different ways you can actually use these exponential moving averages, but hopefully this is at least a good primer for learning about these. So that's really everything I wanted to cover in this webinar here today. We went over the RSI, we went over the EMA, and we went over basically all of the functionality of the charting package, which is primarily what I do like to use these webinars for, because I actually think the Nadex charts are fairly good. I wouldn't say they're the best charts on the market, but I think they're fairly good, and I think there's a lot of functionality that just takes a little bit of time to get used to, because it's like anything, learning a new platform, learning a new charting software, learning anything is gonna take a little bit of time. So we're going to wrap it up here in a couple of minutes. If you do have any further questions, throw them in the chat. I will go ahead and answer them now, and I will give a few minutes to just throw some questions in and make sure everyone has a chance to put them in very quickly here. While we do that, I'm going to put this up on your screen. Swap this. So if you do want to contact us later after this webinar, you can go to customer service at nadex.com, shoot us an email. All of our customer service members are fairly knowledgeable, and they will be able to help you out with any issues you have, or maybe if you don't have a question right now, or you're watching the recording of this and want to get a question answered later, shoot an email over customer service at nadex.com. If you are liking what we're doing here, if you're liking listening to me ramble on for an hour about charting on Nadex, go over to trustpilot.com, leave us a review. It does help us out. Our social media team always likes me to remind everyone to do this, and they always like me to remind everyone to go ahead and follow our socials. So we have all the good ones on here: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn. The recording of this webinar and all webinars we do are put up on our YouTube channel about an hour after they go live. So about an hour, 2 hours today, it should be up this afternoon. And any of the previous webinars, I do a webinar every Thursday. If you want to, the one I did last week, I believe was on call spread and knockouts. The one before that was on binary options. I also do one just going over the platform, how to use the platform. So check out our YouTube. We have a lot of longer content where I just ramble for an hour if that's your style. We have a lot of shorter content if you want to listen to someone talk for 3 minutes rather than me ramble on for hours and hours. So whatever floats your boat, go over to our Nadex YouTube channel. Check some of those out there. Oh yeah, we have a question coming in. I said I missed this. Was it recorded? Yes, it will be up on our YouTube channel very soon. So I'm not seeing any other questions coming in. I'll do a last call for questions right now, but if I don't get any in the next minute or so, I think we will just call it at that point. So last call for questions. Not seeing any more. All right, well, I'm going to wrap it up here at this point. If you do have a question, throw it in right before the end, and I'll get to it. If not, though, thank you all for hanging out for the last hour or so, listening to me talk about the charts. I really love doing these, so it means a lot that all of you sit here listening to me talk for a while, and hopefully this was information that will help you out in your trading in Nadex. So don't want to keep it too long here. So everyone have a great rest of your day. Stay safe out there. I know the world's opening back up. Can still be a little crazy, so always stay safe. Seems like we always live in a crazy world these days. And good luck in all of your trading. Other than that, have a great rest of your day, everyone. And I will talk with you next week. Bye.